there. Welcome to our Peacock event. I'm Katie Derbyshire. I'm the publisher at V&Q Books. We publish remarkable writing from Germany, and as you might notice in the course of the evening, I'm also a translator myself. I'm just going to start by introducing everybody who's here with us magically. First of all, we have Isabel Bogdan, author, gives away, there she is, author of The Peacock. She was born in Cologne, studied English and Japanese, and now is very happy to be living in Hamburg. She reads, writes and translates into German, writers including Jane Garden, Jonathan Safran Foer, Nick Hornby and Jasper Ford. Her very first book, Sachen machen, which is in English means doing things, came out in 2012, followed in 2006 by The Peacock, and in 2019 by Laufen, which means running. And she's won prizes for her translating, her writing, and for the online interview project, Was machen die da? Isa, hello, hello. Where are you today?
Switch on my microphone. I am in my dining room, which has all these books in it.
Which city is that in? Even though I already spoiled that, but you know. Where is your dining room?
Well, in Hamburg. You said that. Sorry.
Our next guest is Annie Rutherford, our amazing translator. She champions poetry and translated literature in all its guises, and has recently been working her bottom off as the programme coordinator for Stanza, Scotland's International Poetry Festival, and she also works as a writer and translator. Published translations include the German/Swiss poet Nora Gomringer, her collection Hydra's Heads, and the Belarusian poet, whose name I can't pronounce. Annie, you're going to have to help me.
Valia Hapieva.
Thank you. Out this year in my garden of mutants. She co-founded the literary magazine Far Off Places and also Göttingen's Poetry Festival. Where are you, Annie?
I'm in Edinburgh. I'm 5 minutes from the sea and about 20-minute cycle from Lighthouse.
Lovely. And then, of course, we have Christine Kidd, the third little face you can see. She's one of Scotland's best-loved and most experienced singers and educators in Scots and contemporary song. Her latest CD, Shift and Change on Green Tracks, has been on the bestseller list since its launch in 2019 and has met with critical acclaim. She was a tutor for a decade at the Centre for Excellence in Traditional Music and was inducted in 2018 to the Scottish Traditional Music Hall of Fame. Christine, where are you?
Hi there. Well, I'm in the beautiful county of Angus, just north of Dundee.
Lovely. We're going to start in a moment with a little bit of music from Christine. I just want to say I hope my mum is here. It's my mum's 75th birthday. If you're watching, Mum, happy birthday. I'm so sad I can't be with you.
Oh.
And
happy birthday, Katie's mum.
Happy birthday, Katie's mum. Happy birthday.
There she is. My mum, Annie Derbyshire, in the chat.
Happy birthday to you.
So, Christine, we're going to start with music, not just happy birthday music. Tell us what we've got coming right now.
I'd love to sing your mum happy birthday at some point, so give me a shout when you want that to happen. But we'll start with for those of you that know the book, the idea of going away, somewhere beautiful would have been somewhere beautiful and slightly remote. And this song has been running through my head for days now. So I thought I would give you this one, because I think it's this sense of it's about rural joy. The Corncrake makes a sound like this kind of ah, ah, ah. So it's not a very pretty sound, but it is kind of like a great symbol of nature. The echo mocks the corncrake. Last that I learned first of all was handsome, young and fair. With her I spent some happy nights along the bank so air. With her I spent some happy nights where young Clare where the echo mocks the corn among the windy knolls. We loved each other dearly, disputes we seldom had. As constant as the pendulum, her heartbeat always glad. We sought for love and found it, why only burning rose, for the echo mocks the corncrake among the windy knolls. Oh, ye maidens fair, pleasure dames, come fae the bank so do. Dearly pay for every cent to the barber pay perfume. But rural joy is free for all, where the scented clover grows, and the echo mocks the corncrake among the the corncrake is new wool, the barn is tae the broom. The windy knolls are clad with snow, the tops the highest one. When cold winter clears the sky, and summer clears the sky, oh, we'll welcome back the corncrake, the bird of joy. We'll welcome back the corncrake, the bird of joy.
Thank you so much, Christine.
Oh,
That was beautiful.
that was lovely,
It wasn't
Christine.
a
Thank
peacock,
you.
but you're welcome.
Isa, tell us just in a couple of words how you two know each other. How come?
It's actually my husband met Christine at a folk music workshop because he's a folk musician too. Just for fun, though. Christine does it professionally. And I think they met at some workshop in Eastern Germany, if I remember rightly.
Both at sessions in Scotland
and sessions in Scotland and
in Germany.
Yeah.
Yes, that is running with some other folk here.
The wonderful connections we make. So we're going to start with actually a little reading. You've heard from Christine that people are going to another place full of anticipation of beauty and joy. Annie, you're going to read us a little bit. Can you set the scene and tell us?
Yeah, so we are at a slightly rundown castle in a little valley in the foot of the Highlands, and a somewhat dysfunctional team of bankers have travelled to rent out the west wing of the castle for some much needed team building. And they've brought with them Helen, a remarkable cook who I very much want as a person in my life, and Rachel a young team building facilitator, and it's her first ever session on her own without her boss, who she normally works with. So shall I just go?
Right.
While Helen got dinner ready in the kitchen, Rachel welcomed the participants to their first session and wrote 3 questions on a flip chart. What is important to me? What am I proud of? What do I wish for? They were to write down their answers to these questions, please, and then share them with the group. However, their answers couldn't have anything to do with work or family. For a moment, silence reigned. Jim took out his pen and started writing. David went pale. Andrew said quietly, "No." Rachel looked at him in surprise. Then Bernard too said that surely she wasn't serious. There was no way he'd do that. The boss agreed matter-of-factly with the 2 men. That really would be too intimate. They were here to talk about their work, after all. Their private lives were not a matter for discussion. The boss had a particular knack for making her opinion extremely clear. Rachel was flabbergasted, but choked back her reaction and explained that she hadn't wanted to tread on anyone's toes. The point was just to get to know a side of each other that they didn't know yet. But of course, she didn't want anyone to feel uncomfortable, she continued. So instead, they were to please draw their company as a ship, with different decks, a navigating bridge, an engine room, and they should position themselves in the correct place, and so on. The bankers rolled their eyes, but were too polite for a second mutiny. Rachel took some larger pieces of paper and felt tips in every colour out of her little case, handed round the paper, put the pens in the middle of the table, and left the bankers to their fate. She went into the kitchen and flopped into a chair. Helen wordlessly passed her a cup of tea. When she returned to the living room, everyone had finished their ship except for Jim. Jim had drawn a spaceship and would probably have been happy to work on it for another 3 hours. At least that was the impression he gave Rachel as he explained his picture. He had clearly had fun constructing the spaceship, considering the details, bringing in different decks, thinking about the propulsion. He cited Douglas Adams' Bistromatics and the infinite improbability drive, and audaciously connected these concepts with the flows of money in the bank and in global finance. Rachel asked where he would position himself. Jim grinned and pointed at the galley. He said, was the cook. The spaceship bank would continue travelling without him. He certainly wasn't directly responsible for keeping the machine running, but the role of cook nonetheless had a certain importance for everyone involved. And indeed, the others all grinned with acknowledgement, even the boss. Rachel then interrupted his presentation of the spaceship, though, because she could already sense that none of the others would really be able to match it. Andrew had drawn a submarine. He talked about the constant danger of destruction and about the control points in the submarine at which this destruction was prevented, whether by controlling the pressure balance when surfacing or checking the oxygen content of the available air. He was a surprisingly talented artist and seemed to understand quite a bit about technology too. He had drawn identical figures at all of his control points and said that he would sit at one of these, just like everyone else present. It didn't matter at all which one you wanted to use as a metaphor for whom. Rachel was impressed by both men's creativity. David had drawn a cargo ship and compared the money the bank managed with the cargo being transported. He had forgotten to draw himself on the ship and couldn't really say off the top of his head where he saw himself. He didn't understand enough about ships for that, he said. Bernard and the boss had both drawn passenger liners and hardly dared to present their ships because they both felt so unimaginative and couldn't really add anything substantial to the thoughts of the others. Both had placed the boss on the bridge. Bernard had drawn himself as the pilot. This provoked a general rolling of eyes, which he by no means missed. They were all secretly relieved that they hadn't needed to position the rest of the group too.
Thank you, Annie. I love listening to you read.
Thank you.
So
It's just so great to hear my own text in a foreign language, so expertly translated and read.
Thank you.
great. One of the things that we've been doing at B&Q at our virtual events is we've been asking the audience questions. And having listened to that, we wondered if you would be able to describe your own ship in the comment section. See if you can do it. It's quite difficult, but to help you, we have done some creative preparation. I'm going to show my ship, which looked quite a lot like an iron the first time I tried it. It's not blocking up the Suez Canal. Here is the HMS Roland and Chris B&Q ship. It does look a little bit like a sort of sandwich, but that's me in the middle, running between the bridge and the engine room. I was going to do flags, and the bridge and engine room were going to be German, and this was going to be sort of, well, then I decided I didn't want to choose a flag for the English language part. So you just have to imagine that. That's me going,
Oh, I love it.
I gave it a name, which is the MS Völkerfreundschaft, which was an actual East German cruise ship where these people playing volleyball in the 80s on our ship.
I love the idea that you are so relaxed in publishing that you can just wander off and play volleyball in the middle of the day. So I made it easy for myself because I'm not an artist. So I did dinghy boats, but also because I think with like translating, you are alone a lot of the time, but also actually like you think you're alone, but there are all of these other people around you, and they, you know, you have a publisher and an author, and there's this amazing other community of translators. So like when you capsize, there will be another boat that will come along and help you out or shout instructions from a distance. And I think also, you know, you kind of have moments where you're going with the wind and you're evidently speeding along like these boats clearly are, and other bits where you're trying to sail against the tide and aren't really moving and you don't really know why. So that's my extended metaphor.
I can't draw, so I built a ship. That's it. And it has a beautiful peacock on the sail. And this peacock is actually a stamp that the fabulous Nora Gombringer got me from Japan, which was lovely. And in case anyone doesn't know Nora Gombringer, there's English translations available by Annie Rutherford.
And Lighthouse always has copies, so you know.
And as we have to put ourselves on the ship, this is me, the baby being metaphorical for the book I'm writing. And I'm pretty much alone on this ship. Put this here. Because I'm a freelancer, so I'm alone on my ship. But as you know, in single-handed sailing, there's always a great team behind every sailor. And I've got my agent, who always got an eye on me. Then I've got my editor, who's a real troubleshooter. And of course, there's the publisher, who's a real queen. And there's cover designers who make the book look beautiful. And there's press and marketing departments who tell it to the world. And then, of course, there's the translators who make a book flourish and grow out into the world. So I've got all these lovely people around me. And also, I've got friends, of course, who infuse me with self-esteem and go on and help me a lot.
Amazing.
And hopefully give me a vaccine someday.
That would be good.
Ah, lovely. It's hard to draw. I wish I had thought, just ignore my own question and do yes. So, Ida, have you ever been to a team building workshop?
No, I've never been to any team building workshop.
So how did you research this part of the book?
Well, I bought a book on team building and didn't read it. I just flipped through it and sort of soaked up inspiration. But I have plenty of friends who went on team building events and who told me all these stories about drawing ships and building huts in the forest and having to cook together or to write down what they think is important and what makes them proud and all this stuff. And they also told me how much they hated.
They infused with knowledge, injected with knowledge. Annie, how about the translation of that? It's quite specific language that team building.
It is. I watched a lot of W1A, and neither of you will know what that is. But it's a sitcom set in the BBC's higher echelons about the BBC head of values, and they always have to do all of this kind of bullshitty like team building stuff, and there's a lot of like talking that doesn't get anywhere. And that felt quite relevant to those parts of the book where there's a lot of sort of talking around an issue. So yeah, I used it as an excuse to watch a lot of W1A. I also did a lot of Googling about team building exercises, and even just things like, so they later fail to build a den in the woods. And in German, that was hut, and it took me so long to realize, like, of course we'd say den, but just checking that kind of thing. And there are a lot of online manuals of what you can do with your team for team building. So that was, lots of Google.
Sorry about that.
I don't know about everyone else. I've lost the video of Annie and Isa. I can see myself.
I can see all of us.
Oh,
yes.
Good. Okay.
So do I.
Good. So, Isa, speaking of... Oh, you're back. Speaking of research, Isa, how does a German writer come to set a book in the Scottish Highlands? Have you heard that there's a musical connection?
Yes, there's a musical collection, aka my husband, who just loves Scottish music. So we've spent a lot of holidays in Scotland in the past 30 years. And one Scottish friend of ours told me the story about a peacock that had gone crazy and started to attack blue things, cars of holiday guests, for example. And I thought, that's just such a crazy story. I want to tell it. So I asked them whether it's okay if I turn their story into a story. And they said, yeah, fine, go along. And so I did. I never even thought of moving it somewhere else. I thought it's just perfect to put it there. And so I had a short story first that ended with a good twist, I thought, which I'm not going to tell because Annie's going to end her second bit of reading with it. And after a while, I thought, if that's going to happen, what this twist announces, then the next thing that's going to happen is this and that. You haven't really finished your story. So I thought, let's try to turn it into a novel.
And it did.
That's it. And it did. Surprisingly enough.
Annie, there you are in Edinburgh, and you're translating book from German, but it's set in Scotland. How do people react?
They were so confused. So many people thought I was translating into German from English, even though that's not what I do. So it was quite weird how many people found it a really weird concept that a German book could possibly be about somewhere that wasn't Germany. Yeah.
That's a funny one.
That's why I never thought it was going to be translated.
I think I think that someone did say, I can't remember, this may even have been you, Isa, but I remember reading something about German booksellers saying that they often get people asking for the original when they buy the German book.
One bookseller told me he had a customer who swore he had written the English original. Couldn't be convinced otherwise.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So let's get a little taste for the German. Isa's going to read us a little passage. But for those of you, who don't understand a word of this, Isa, can you tell us what's going on here?
Well, the bankers have come to this castle for their team building event. And one of the peacocks at the castle is crazy and attacks blue things. And the lady banker boss has arrived in a shiny new bright blue car. So in the early morning, the peacock attacked this car. And the lord, or the laird, sees it and thinks, it's sad, but there's only one solution to this. So he takes the peacock into the forest and shoots it. That's before breakfast. And then the bankers wake up and don't know about anything. They don't know there's a crazy peacock. They don't know the boss's car's been damaged or anything. And they have a dog with them. The boss's dog, he's called Mervyn. And they want to go for a walk with the dog until Helen has breakfast ready. And I'm going to read that bit in German now. Mervyn war der Einzige, der sich von Herzen auf den Tag und den Spaziergang freute. Er sprang herum, rannte ein Stück vor und wieder zurück und freute sich generell seines Lebens, während die Menschen sich anschwiegen oder nur das Nötigste miteinander sprachen. Am angenehmsten kam Mervyn, der schon etwas ältere Herr, vor. Der war eigentlich immer freundlich. Der und die Frau, die immer in der Küche war und ihm manchmal etwas zusteckte. Sein Frauchen hingegen reagierte komischerweise gar nicht begeistert, als er ihr das weiche Spielzeug brachte, das nach dem anderen Hund duftete. Liz fand den Plüschaffen nach wie vor widerlich und befahl Mervyn, ihn fallen zu lassen. Mervyn verstand das nicht, gehorchte aber und war auch gleich wieder gut gelaunt, weil es genügend anderes zu entdecken gab. Das alte Eishaus und die halb verfallene Kapelle, die die Menschen nicht mal bemerkt hatten, weil sie hinter einer Decke unter Bäumen lag und die Menschen immer nur auf Wegen gingen. Mervyn streifte, wie Hunde es eben tun, durchs Unterholz, entfernte sich ein wenig von den Menschen, folgte seiner Nase und fand den toten Pfau. Kurz war er verwirrt, denn er hatte nicht gemerkt, dass dies ein Jagdausflug war. Er hatte keinen Schuss gehört, aber er roch ihn ja. Eindeutig. Und noch ein noch warmer, erschossener großer Vogel musste selbstverständlich apportiert werden. Der Setter kannte seine Pflichten. Und so brachte er seinem Frauchen den Pfau. Nur ein klein wenig zerfleddert, Mervyn war stolz und zufrieden, wedelte mit dem Schwanz und freute sich auf Lob und Streicheleinheiten. Er verstand überhaupt nicht, warum sie ihn stattdessen anschrie und beschimpfte, ihn sogar schlug, was sie sonst nie tat, und warum diese unangenehme Aufregung unter den Menschen entstand. Alle waren ganz aus dem Häuschen, aber offenbar nicht vor Freude, sondern sehr böse auf ihn. Mervyn zog den Schwanz ein und verkroch sich. Er hatte doch alles richtig gemacht. So that was a bit about the bankers going for a walk with Mervyn, the dog. And we're kind of inside Mervyn's head in this scene. He's the only one of the group who is looking forward to the day and who's generally happy. And he runs around in the forest and discovers all sorts of things, the old ice house and a dilapidated chapel. And the people, the humans, don't even see this chapel because it's behind some trees. And so then he wanders off into the forest and finds the dead peacock. And because he's a dog who's always, who's also taken out for hunting, he knows what to do when he finds a dead bird that has obviously been shot, which he can smell. So he takes this dead bird to the banker boss and doesn't understand at all why she shouts at him and hits him and is generally very unhappy, and all the humans are very unhappy. And he just doesn't understand him. Doesn't understand it because he thinks he did everything he's supposed to do.
He's like kind of a secret hero in the book, I think.
I feel so sorry for Mervyn in that scene because I feel like we've all been there where we're like, but I did all of the things. I've done all of the things just right.
Yes, he has.
Yeah.
I mean, there's quite a lot of animals in the book.
A lot of animals.
Did that bring up any particular issues for the
Yeah, I mean there were a few things. So there were a lot of live animals. The Macintoshes who own the castle have a lot of pets, and there's also all of Helen's meals are described really beautifully, and there's a lot of meat. And I don't own pets, and I'm vegetarian, and I have been both of those things all of my adult life. So there was a lot of even just talking about, because quite often it'll talk about owning the animals, and you don't actually say that if you own a pet. You don't say, oh, I own a dog. You say, I have a dog. I am told by people who do these things. So that was something, and I ended up having to message a lot of friends. My Google history looked very, very weird because there's quite a bit about the pheasant shooting, and so I did a lot of Googling of this kind of countryside life that I am aware of, but is very much not my life. And I had a long phone conversation with my mum about what we would say instead of goose shit if we don't want to swear, because my mum worked for a long time on a nature reserve, and we kind of were both going, yeah, you can't say, I mean, for other birds you'd say bird droppings, but you wouldn't say that for a large bird. And you'd say dog dirt, which is a literal translation of the German, the Dreck, but you wouldn't say that for a goose. And so it was my mum who came up with goose muck, which comes up a lot in the book. So yeah, there were quite a few things there.
I actually had Gänse Scheiße, which is goose shit, first in the German, and then changed it to Gänse Dreck.
Yeah. Goose shit is what comes to mind. I mean,
yeah, well.
I also learned while writing the book that I constantly muddle up the word peacock and pheasant, and this is a bad book for that. So I had to do a lot of control find replace. So that was good. Yeah.
One of my favorite things with language learners is different words for animal, the things that animals say. And the classic in German would be cockerel saying "kikiriki." And I wondered if anyone in the audience has their own favorite animal word in the language they speak. Do share if you do. In the meantime, I'm going to ask you, Isa. You, at the beginning, you've had a very successful translation career yourself. So what's it like to be translated all of a sudden?
I think it's fabulous. And I had no difficulty at all in letting go, because I know that when I translate, I need my authors, or the authors I translate, to trust me. And I'm taking this job seriously, and I'm trying the best I can. So I just trusted my translators. There's also translations into Dutch and Spanish. which I can't judge at all. The English I can read. And I think Annie did a brilliant job. It's just like reading myself, only in better English. And I really hear myself in reading your translation. So
thank you.
I thought it was fantastic. It felt great.
That's what we want to hear. No, thank you very much.
And also in your reading, I thought, yes. It's just the sound I wanted it to have.
Oh, it's a really, I feel like, I've tried to persuade Casey, but I don't think an audiobook is happening. But I feel like it's a very read book. No, I don't mean that, I know why. It's one that I very much heard when I was translating. And my neighbours probably heard as well, because I was constantly talking to myself.
Yeah, well, my neighbours probably did too. Because not while I'm writing, but while editing, I read a lot loud to myself to hear whether this sounds right and the rhythm is right. And,
definitely.
See, I never do that. It's always very good advice for translators. Read as loud as the rhythm correct, and I've never done it.
I mean, to be fair, I normally translate poems and you can read them much more quickly. Like, it's like, oh, look, I've done that. Novel takes you a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, the dialogues in the book, if anyone, Harry Dixon, punctured laughter. If anyone has yet to read the book, which if you don't own the book, you can press this button at the bottom. There's no direct dialogue. So it's how did you deal with that, Annie? Were you kind of
That's a good question.
I didn't experience this question.
So there's a lot of indirect speech, like a lot of dialogue, but without it being marked as such. Like you heard in the passage that I read, and also lots of bits that are from characters' points of view, but without ever being kind of like, quote, she said or she thought. And it did mean, because we've got the Scottish characters, and Scottish characters have quite different sort of backgrounds as well. There's Eileen, the housekeeper, who allegedly has such a strong accent that Jim struggles to understand her. I mean, okay, we all know what English people are like with Scottish accents, but like she's got a bit of a broader accent. And then we've got the Laird and Lady, who are, obviously a Laird and Lady. And then there's the Londoners, and there's a Polish guy. And so I did really try to think about what words each character would use, and to try and keep that separate. Cocorico is French for cock-a-doodle-doo, which I love. But it was quite weird. And I think you're always, when you're translating, there's always a bit of your brain that is like, oh, but people are going to criticize it and say this. And I was really aware that, like, normally if I'm editing something, I really want stuff to be consistent, and that being consistent within the characters' voices meant not being consistent across the novel, which felt very weird. Sorry, that's a very rambly answer.
No, it's a good answer. It makes sense. I know that feeling of thinking people are going to criticize you. I don't know.
They always do.
Yeah. You have to, I think.
I think it's just, I think it's a good part of your brain as well, because if you're then arguing with that part, then you know that you're doing what you want to do.
Yeah. Lovely animal noises. A whole link to animal noises, which I can't click on. I'm very tempted. And
I'm gonna have to save the chat.
Yes. And the Turkish horse galloping. I hope that was vaguely similar to the Turkish pronunciation. Let's hear another little passage. We're going to cut to the quick. Here comes a pretty key scene from Annie. Isa, you already have actually outlined earlier what happens before this scene, so we're just going
to... the dog found the dead peacock, and the bankers think about what to do with the dead bird. They think the dog killed the bird, and they don't want to tell the Lord and Lady Mackintosh about it. So the boss says to David, who is the youngest and most shy of the bankers, to get rid of the dead peacock. That's what happens.
David had a problem. He felt sick. He hardly ate any breakfast, just nibbled at a piece of toast, drank his tea, and brooded. He didn't want to touch the dead peacock, neither with his bare hands nor with his peckery leather gloves. And he had absolutely no idea how he was meant to get rid of it. A peacock isn't exactly a blackbird, it's pretty big. His only option was probably to carry it deeper into the woods and bury it. But what with? The ground might already be frozen and much too hard to dig a grave. And anyway, he didn't have a spade and could hardly dig with his hands. On top of that, how was he meant to explain himself if someone caught him? And just how was he meant to take the peacock deeper into the woods without touching it? He was quite distraught. After breakfast, he just stayed put in the kitchen. Helen had noticed over breakfast that David, who seemed to be fairly reserved by nature anyway, was quieter than he had been the night before, and even looked quite pale. Something was bothering him, and the cook, with all her maternal ways, was always happy to offer comfort, with cakes and biscuits and stews. But David didn't want any cake or any maternal comfort. He wanted a whiskey at this time in the morning. And he got one. It was perfectly clear to Helen that he didn't have a drink problem, but rather that something must have happened on the morning walk. The rest of the bankers had seemed even more tense than they had the night before too. David asked for another whiskey. Helen raised an eyebrow. After the third whiskey, he explained his problem. There was a dead peacock in the woods, killed by the boss's Irish setter, and now he was meant to dispose of it, and he had absolutely no idea how. And his boss most certainly would not be amused if he didn't succeed, and you knew what that meant if Helen didn't mind him saying so. The cook put this down to the alcohol. Surely the young man wouldn't otherwise have been so blunt. You couldn't just hide a peacock like that, said David. It had to be buried. And was he meant to break into the Macintosh's shed to steal a spade or something? That just wasn't on. What if he got caught when stealing the spade? Or when burying the peacock? How was he meant to explain that to the laird and lady? He wasn't a thief, he said, and he wasn't a lumberjack or an undertaker either. He was a banker. Then he drank another whiskey. The cook thought about it for a split second. And I, she said quietly, I am a cook.
That's so fabulous.
Lovely, Annie. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's
So you've
actually,
noticed
that was actually, that's on page 80, I think, in the German version now. And it was the end of this very first short story I wrote. It was page 20 then. And then I thought, if the cook really does that, cook the peacock, then the next thing that is going to happen is she'll find the, what's it called? The Schrot, the little bullets.
One of the things we had to Google, the lead.
The lead.
Yeah.
In the peacock. So the cook will know that the peacock wasn't killed by the dog, but was shot. So I thought, you haven't finished your story. You have to go on.
Yeah. No. So,
You'll have noticed in the audience that this is a funny book. And you probably noticed also that it is a funny German book written by a woman. Um, I'm wondering, Isa, have you faced any resistance as a woman? And not all of your writing is humorous, but for this particular book,
For being funny?
and a woman at the same time.
Actually, no. I once had a reading with the book before, Sachen machen, which means doing things. And it's it's a collection of very small texts about me trying various kinds of sports and going to strange events I wouldn't normally go to.
Yeah.
And that's a funny book.
Yeah.
And I was on stage once with another hilariously funny woman, moderated by two women, who actually asked us why women normally aren't funny, except for the two of us. And we were both like, just didn't know what to say. It was just such a strange question, telling us we were funny, but women usually weren't. I have no idea what this is. It's probably just as strange as saying Germans are not funny.
I was going to say, though, I feel like the gender thing with humor is even worse in Germany. I don't know, but as someone who does a lot of poetry things, when I was in Germany, it was really unusual for a woman to win a poetry slam, because in Germany, funny poets tended to do well at slams and women aren't funny. And it was really, I remember being at a poetry slam where a woman won and people were so surprised. And that would have been like 2014. Yeah.
That's strange. But actually, regarding the Peacock, nobody found me overly funny or inappropriately funny or anything.
Good. Phew. I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to ask the audience if they have any recommendations for funny women writers. And then I'm going to ask you, Annie, very quickly, another question while the audience thinks about that. And then I'm going to open up questions to the audience. So quickly, audience. No, quickly, Annie, not audience. How do you translate the humor?
I mean, I think a lot of it was very character and plot driven, so I really didn't worry about it. And I think I figured as long as I was laughing, then hopefully other people would be too. And I genuinely found it funnier and funnier the more time I spent with it, which maybe isn't actually a good sign for other people will find it that funny. But I think I just focused really hard on trying to get the tone and the voices right. And I felt as long as those were correct, and those were, or not correct, but kind of on point, then the humor would follow.
It's not the kind of funny that cracks jokes or puns or anything.
Yeah.
It's, as you say, it's plot and character driven, so it shouldn't be that much of a translating problem at that point, I think.
No,
it's always a problem when you have a lot of wordplay and puns and jokes and such.
And I found it really funny, having spent a lot of holidays in rural parts of Scotland with, there's such a beautiful description. We didn't get to this scene, but with all of these little holiday cottages with wonky floors, and the water doesn't quite run out of the sinks, and you have this trickle of water in a shower. And I knew those places so well. And I have tour guided in places where, I've arrived at the hotel and they've looked at me and gone, oh, well, it's a good thing you're small. And then handed me a key for a tiny room. So I found the castle hilarious, and I think it's almost funnier in English because it's so accurate for certain parts of rural Scotland.
We've got some lovely recommendations of funny women. Nelsing, who lives just outside Berlin, I think. Kerstin Gier, the German writer, I agree, Rachel. Jan Gay, especially the Chili Bean Paste Plan. It's a good title.
Oh, I think the Chili Bean Paste Plan is possibly one of the books we're doing with the Lighthouse Women in Translation Book Club, maybe. It's definitely one that's come up.
And Marina Lewicka has a lot of fans, Sue Townsend. My dad once met Townsend. He thinks it's very funny. Yes. Let me hand over the baton to the audience. We've got a couple of questions already, which I'm going to look at. Yes, we have. I'm going to have to pronounce this Japanese word. Kokekoko.
Kokekoko.
Ah, of course, Isa.
Kokekoko.
Qualified to do that than I am.
Yep.
It's lovely.
That is a very, very, very good question for Annie.
I would love to be an audiobook narrator. I did at the point when I was starting out freelancing, try and figure out how to become an audiobook translator, but it's I think a slightly weird one to get into, like all jobs.
Well, in case there was an audiobook of the Peacock, I certainly strongly support the idea of you reading it.
I would be very annoyed if anyone else read it, I'm not going to lie.
I know somebody in the audience might have to help me here, but I know the translator of that Polish writer. It's very late in the evening over here.
Olga Tokarczuk?
Exactly. Tokarczuk's,
Antonia Lloyd-Jones is one of the translators.
Yes, Antonia read the audiobook of With the Animals. And she wrote an article about it. Very interesting.
Nice.
So I think that's maybe the first time that a translator read the audiobook of their own translation. And she did it very well. Do you have any more questions? Ask away. Here is a difficult question. How are you feeling about the landscape of translated fiction and women being translated in particular?
I think that's a really good question for you, Casey, as someone who started up a publisher to publish translated books.
Well, I think there's not enough. And you know,
that's why you are here now.
I think the people the writers who get translated into English tend to be the very high profile award-winning ones, and we know that in misogynistic world, women win fewer prizes and have lower profiles, so it tends to have a knock-on effect, and that's a shame because we're missing Anne. I know Annie can have a word plug here for her Women in Translation.
Oh yeah, if you want to come to the book club that meets monthly with Lighthouse, at the moment we're virtual, and we've just had our last meeting, so you'd have a whole month to read the next book. Then yeah, we get together once a month and we talk about books by women in translation, and our upcoming one, Lighthouse might be able to remind me what it is. I think it's the Book of God. Yeah, that started up because there aren't enough books by women translated, but it's actually been a really, thank you, the Book of Anna, Book of God, Book of Anna. I think the next one is the Girls of God. Oh yeah, Book of Anna, which is, I think it's a Mexican writer, and it is about the son of Anna Karenina. It's in kind of revolutionary Russia. I got there.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Mary.
But yeah, I feel like it's getting better, and I feel like there's more awareness of it. But I think even the fact that people were so surprised that a German book could not be set in Germany shows how much we expect, like, you know, Mexican books to be in Mexico. Like, a Mexican book set in Russia? What is this madness? You know, it's kind of...
While at the same time finding it perfectly normal for a British writer to set their books in medieval China. You know,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. What I'm going to do now, do we have any more questions? Oh, yes. Yeah.
Two more questions.
Would Laura, would Isa, can you answer this? As a German speaker, but not very well practiced, would I find the German version easy to read?
I have no idea. Annie might be more able to judge.
I think it depends on your level. Like, I feel like if you've done German at uni but haven't spoken it for a while, I think you'll be fine. I think if you did German at school, buy the English translation and then read the German. Degree level, you'll be fine.
Best buy both of them. And if you get stuck with the German, you can always check on the English. I do have a lot of fun in putting in words that are a bit off the normal track. There's words like für dahin that nobody actually uses. But if you can just ignore the words you don't know, it shouldn't be too complicated. I mean, the story is not too complicated. If you don't get one word or the other, it should be fine, I think.
Yeah, Laura's already going to buy both copies, so that's very good.
We approve of this plan, Laura.
You can buy the English version via the green button under our pictures.
Very good. One last question to you, Isa, and then we'll hear from Christine again. What made you choose the peacock as the central animal in the book? Yes, I think
it was just the simple fact that friends told me this story of a peacock that had gone crazy and attacked blue things. Actually, one German reader asked me, does it have to be a peacock, or could it just as well have been a monkey? Yeah. And I thought, yes, well, that's what Scottish castles usually have in their backyard. That's monkeys. He said, yeah, because I thought there are people who eat monkeys. I said, yes, well, I would have had to place it somewhere else. And the truth is, there was a mad peacock, and it stayed a peacock.
I'm glad.
That it wasn't a monkey.
But I'm not glad it's a peacock. It's much better. Yeah, Rachel, I know has an experience of her own with the mad birds. Yeah, I'm gonna say a couple of thank yous and then hand over to Christine to finish off the evening for us. I have to say thank you to everybody for coming and for saying a message to my mum, who might have gone by now. I think. To Myri at Lighthouse Books and all of the team for all their support. It's been lovely interacting with you on the social media this week. And to Isa, Annie, and Christine.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Christine, it's your honour, and we're so honoured to have you. Thank you so much, and it's your honour to finish the evening.
To finish us off, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, that's fine. It's just it's a bit of a lag on my screen. It's a bit weird. Anyway, thanks very much for having me. I'm absolutely delighted to be asked to sing for the Peacock. Great book. And,
I'm absolutely delighted that you sing for the Peacock.
Oh, there you go. So I mean, it's just like a yeah, a lovely, funny book, and about going up a glen, big house. So I thought I'd finish off with a song which is about going to the glen. It's not a funny song, but again, maybe up to the glen and perhaps thinking that you're going to have a relaxed time once again, or who knows what would happen. So this is a song that, you know, the cook and you know, sitting in the kitchen, this is one that they more than likely would have sung together. This could have well have been one of the ones, very, very well known one, in the kind of general area where the book might be set. So here we go. It's called Bonnie Glenshee, and join in, sing along. Best mute yourself or we'll have quite a noise. Anyway, thank you so much. Oh, day you see on high hills a cover covered with snow. They parted, money's a true love, and they'll soon part us twa. Busk, busk, bonny lassie, and come awa with me, and I'll take ye to Glen Isla, near bonny Glenshee. Do you see yon shepherds as they walk along, with their plaidies round about them, and their sheep grazing on? Busk, busk, bonny lassie, and come awa with me, and I'll take ye to Glen Isla, near bonny Glenshee. Do you see yon sodgers as they march along, with their muskets o'er their shoulders, and their broadswords hanging down? Busk, busk, bonny lassie, and come awa with me, and I'll take ye to Glen Isla, near bonny Glenshee. For it's fain a word gang away, you're on my mind. It was never my intention to leave you behind. So busk, busk, bonny lassie, and come awa with me, and I'll take ye to Glen Isla, near bonny Glenshee. Thanks very much, and remember, there's only a certain number of days till Christmas and lots of people to buy books for, so go ahead and treat everyone.
Thank you so much, Christine.